This podcast is not intended as legal advice. If you're in need of legal services, please contact 602-375-6752 to set up a consultation. You're listening to the official podcast of the Law Office of Libby Banks, Estate Planning, Wills, and Trusts. Hosted by Libby Banks and Travis Meyers, your estate planning attorneys in the Phoenix Valley.
All right, we're here for the podcast for the Law Office of Libby Banks.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today, Libby and I are going to be talking about our stories and how we got to this point. And Libby, how long have you and the Law Office of Libby Banks been serving this great community?
Well, so I like to tell clients I've been practicing law longer than I want to say because it's been a long time. But we got into the estate planning about 12, 13 years ago and established the Law Office of Libby Banks at that point. And the rest is history, still being made.
Hey, fantastic. So what are some of the things in your career that got you to this point?
So my career actually started with a big firm in Oklahoma City, and I ended up in doing litigation, all kinds. You know, we did some contract disputes, some big securities lawsuits. I did a little bit of divorce just because they made me do that and I didn't want to. So what really led me to this was when we moved here to Arizona, I started doing work for other attorneys, just freelance. The kids were still small, and I was trying to get to know Arizona law while not overwhelming myself with a full-time job as we were getting them adjusted to a new environment, new schools, and all of that. And I started working for a couple different attorneys who did the probate contests. So that's where somebody has a will and it's being disputed, or somebody has no will. Somebody has a trust, but it's not clear, or something's gone wrong with it. And so now we have a big fight over the estates. And initially what I did was I did the legal research and writing, and they were fascinating cases. There was always something interesting on the legal side. And then one of the attorneys started to ask if I would be more involved. You know, would I meet with the clients? Would I start doing a little bit more? And the kids were older, so I said, sure, I'm happy to do that. And all of a sudden, those fascinating legal questions had a face, and it was a very unhappy face. It was often a grief-stricken face. What I discovered as I started working with the families or the individuals who were going through these probate cases that were so interesting on the legal side was that it was really tearing the families apart. It was so hard on those who were left behind and those who didn't have clear instructions. And, it was people who didn't even get a chance to grieve the loss of their loved one because now they were in the middle of all these probate fights, the property fight, trying to get everything straightened out. And that's when I started to realize just how important estate planning is. And so I started to do estate planning for some people and decided that I really liked that. That was where I wanted to be, on that preventative side, counseling people who were trying to make sure that they didn't leave those messes behind, that they could, put things in place that would avoid the kinds of things that I'd seen and that they worried about as well. So that's how I actually got into it. And at that point, I decided that I would open my own firm, and I did so. And really enjoying being in the community in this capacity.
Yeah. How did the law firm initially open up? What community are we serving?
Right. So I actually started in Moon Valley. So my home's in Moon Valley, and I had been working from home with all of the freelance work I did or working from an attorney's office. So I actually rented conference room space for meetings, and that was just down the street on 7th Street with a little place that offered that. And my first clients were a lot of my friends and community members in Moon Valley. From there, we finally got busy enough that I really needed more regular meeting space, and a friend of mine who also does estate planning had an additional office and invited me to sublease from him. So we moved over to Tatum near Shea, and I rented from him for several years until we really got to the point where I kind of needed my own conference room because I was meeting with people all day long, and we were supposed to be sharing the conference room. That wasn't happening for some parts of the day. And I did expanded my staff. I really needed another space for staff members. I by that time, I had 2 spaces there plus the conference room, and I needed an additional space. So now we're at 50th Street in Shea. I leased a space there, and we moved in November of 2018. And then during the COVID situation, we really grew because people were realizing how important it is to get an estate plan in place. And we expanded the office, and then finally got to hire an attorney to help me out. And so I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it has been quite a ride, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It has, indeed.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little more about the team. I know there's obviously another attorney working with you, but how is the team structured? How are we best set up to help all those clients that you're bringing in?
So our main focus is getting those estate plans in place so that hopefully we avoid probate. So the estate planning team is you and me, for sure. And then we have a paralegal who is our primary estate planning paralegal that helps us prepare the documents, can meet with clients who are doing will plans, and then can conduct the signing. So, we always make sure that our clients have signed everything. So we do that in our office with our notaries and witnesses. So our paralegal is able to do that. And then he has an assistant, also a paralegal, who is able to do all of those things as well. And then our administrative staff, the person taking the calls and making sure that if somebody's trying to make an appointment, that we're the right attorney for them, that what they need is really what we offer, and then help us with scheduling appointments for everybody. So that's kind of the estate planning team. Then you head up our probate team and our trust administration team. So we have a probate paralegal who helps with preparing all the documents that have to be filed with the court for probates. To be clear, those are uncontested probates. We don't do the probate contests. We do the ones where it's, somebody only has a will and didn't realize that did not by itself avoid probate, but it's still straightforward. Everybody is in agreement. And the same if they have no will, if everybody's in agreement about taking care of the estate, then we help them with those. And then the trust administration. So often, our clients are pretty well set up with the trust administration, but we meet with their agents or trustees and make sure they understand their responsibilities, what the trust requires them to do, give them the documents they need to go to the bank and show that they're now responsible for the estate, and then are available for anything else they need from us. So that's your department, and I'm very happy to have you there and helping with that.
Yeah. I guess maybe just another fun question for you. What would you say your favorite part about being an estate planning attorney is?
Meeting with people. So I get to meet so many really interesting people. They've had interesting careers, or they're still in the middle of interesting careers. Sometimes it's interesting property, including property I haven't had to plan for before. Just helping them work through what are the concerns that you have for your kids? What do we need to plan for that's unusual? What do you worry about that our plan can help give you some peace of mind? So working through all those issues, meeting with the clients, that's absolutely my favorite part of it. So Travis, I have to say a little bit about you first, and that is that you're a Moon Valley guy as well.
That's right.
So you went to school with my kids. You were in Boy Scouts with my sons. And so when I ran across you and discovered that you might be interested in coming here to work, it just seemed like a no-brainer. And so that's very cool connection there. So tell me, how did you end up going to law school?
Oh, goodness. That's a good question. Like you said, I grew up in the Moon Valley area. I would say that most of my time spent in extracurricular activities and things like that was around like music and music performance and things along those lines. And I was really involved with all the bands at Thunderbird. I was involved pretty heavily at youth at Shadow Rock Church in Phoenix as well, which your family also went to at the time. So it got a lot of great connections from that. One of those connections kind of led me to going to NAU to study criminal justice and a music minor. And toward the end of my time at NAU, I was kind of faced with the decision of whether I would really follow in many of my family members' footsteps and join the military or law enforcement or something along those lines, or going to law school. And for a summer, I remember during my years in undergrad, I had worked pouring concrete and doing things outside and learned a lot about myself, including the fact that I think I'm more of an indoor cat than an outdoor cat. I went to law school. I had applied a couple of different places and really found a good fit at Michigan State, which was very interesting time for a lot of reasons. I'm sure having gone through law school yourself, it's a very competitive environment. It's very challenging for a number of reasons, but it was also challenging being 2,000 to 5,000 miles away from a lot of people that I really cared about. And I got through law school. I enjoyed parts of it. There are really some great people that I met from it. But once I really was starting to get involved and learn more, I really knew that what I wanted to do the most with my law degree was to help people in more of a way than I could with just like a criminal justice degree. I wanted to be able to use the law to really make a meaningful impact in people's lives. I also knew at the time that I wanted to get involved in litigation, much like yourself. I really loved being in court. There was a performative aspect to it. Maybe it's the musician coming out in me or something like that. But I loved being able to make articulate arguments to a jury and to kind of have some performance aspect of it as well. So right out of law school, after I had passed the bar, I worked at the county attorney's office as a criminal prosecutor for about 3 years. And the thing about the prosecutor's office is if you are looking to do litigation, that is possibly the best place to go, because they will put you to work immediately in trial work. And man, I ate it up. I did as much as I could. was in a couple of specialty bureaus that got me a lot of great trial experience. But I was going through it. I was spending much of my time focused on work, including weekends and holidays and things like that. And I'm sure if you talk with any criminal law attorney, they'll probably tell you about the same thing, is that it's a lifestyle.
Right.
You really you don't get as much time to prioritize things like a new family,
Right.
which is relevant to where I'm at now. But between the prosecutor's office and here, I worked for a smaller Social Security disability firm as well, where the entire mission of what we were doing was trying to help people that couldn't work or couldn't do anything to provide for themselves to get on some very much needed assistance from the federal government through Social Security. Loved the mission of that. I mean, that is why I went to law school, so that I could help people that really needed it use the law in a way that was going to help them out. And then COVID-19 hit, and while I still was able to work, just the very fundamental way that we were working changed. There was a lot of attrition in the industry and in the office, and you at the time were working on an estate plan for myself and my wife, and from what I remember, we're in need of some help because, like you said, a lot of people were coming in and needing some legal help in the estate planning sphere. And while I didn't initially see myself being an estate planning attorney, it made sense to me. It made sense that you could use these areas of the law to help plan for some of people's most vulnerable times in their lives. And I took a jump, and I've been here now just a little over 2 years, and it's really been a good move.
Yeah. And I remember when we interviewed you, or maybe it was afterwards, but in that time period, you talked about an internship you had while you were in law school that also kind of was, a little bit of planting a seed that could lead you to working in the environment that you have here. Do you want to maybe speak to that too?
Yeah. So while I was at law school, I worked for a very small law firm that did Social Security disability. So the law firm was an attorney named Mike Dudley. His wife was the we call her the Swiss Army knife because she just did a little bit of everything. She was reception, she was administration, she was, I don't know that I ever heard her at a point where she wasn't either on hold or on the phone with Social Security for our clients. And they did have a receptionist, and they would hire every year 3 law students to help with brief writing and things like that. But that was a situation in law school where I knew nothing about Social Security disability. I didn't know that it existed or the framework that was around it. But once I learned more about it, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mission. I enjoyed all of that. But I also really enjoyed the passion that Mike and his team, his family, had for helping people. And I just remember thinking that there were a lot of parallels between my decision to jump into that and to jump into this office as well. This was a small, maybe now a slightly more medium-sized law firm that was run by a family that I knew, liked, and respected, and had a great reputation in the community, so I know I'd be taken care of. And they had a passion for helping people with the law, and the internship was one of the best decisions that I made, and I'd say that we're about at that point too.
Great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and so for those who don't know, we have family members who work here as well. So my husband, Andy, was the first one to start helping me when I started getting busier. And it was like, please go copy this. Please go print that. Can you take this to the mailbox? And then my son, John, my first paralegal, and still works for us as our paralegal. And then our Swiss Army knife, we call her the utility player, is our my daughter, Emma, who works remotely now, but has worked for us off and on since she was 16, helping with various things, and is great in so many ways, from accounting and helping Andy with the books to helping with the technology and putting processes in place so we don't have anything slip through the cracks along the way. So, and then that's why you were such a great opportunity to hire, because you were part of the Shadow Rock family at church and had been part of the Boy Scout family. So it just was really great to have you in here, and kind of a seamless slipping right in and fitting right in. So that's awesome.
Libby, you had mentioned before that we kind of have two different aspects of our practice. We have estate planning and we have probate and trust administration. My next question will be focused specifically on estate planning. Who are some of the people that we typically help in the estate planning sphere?
Right. Yeah. So I'll start with one of my favorite ones to counsel, and that is that blended family. So somebody who's on a second marriage, sometimes a third or fourth marriage, they both have kids from previous marriages. They want to put a plan together. They may be taking care of each other, as well as making sure that their kids get some of their assets, either as soon as they pass or only after both of them pass. And so working through those issues, I feel very helpful, because those are the ones that tend to be the messiest if we don't have a good plan in place. But I absolutely love our married couples that have been married for 50 years and have the same two wonderful kids who have grown up and given them, 4.2 grandchildren or whatever. So somebody who has a home, who's got maybe some stock accounts, maybe has a 401k or an IRA, needs to have a plan to make sure that they've got the probate avoidance in place. So happy to work with all of those people, married, single, kids or no kids, just making sure that they have a good plan in place, which can be a will plan, but for us, most of the time, we really love the revocable trust for planning. It's just the smoothest way to put together a good plan that avoids conflict, avoids court, and we build into our trusts all of the I call it the answer book. What do we do if there's no trustee? We're not going to have to go to court probably, because we've got things built into the trust that avoids court proceedings and the expense and time-consuming nature of that as much as possible, which is sad for the litigators, but
saves a lot of stress, though.
Yes, it saves a ton of stress. So really, homeowners are a great referral for us, for somebody who wanted to know, who do I send your way, or am I a person you'd want to see in your office? If you own a home, I want to see you in the office, because that's usually, for a lot of people, it's their biggest asset, and it's the one that's the hardest for them to plan for to avoid probate.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've been talking a lot about avoiding probate. Probate is kind of the dirty word that everyone hears in the estate planning world. And, a lot of people know that they have to avoid it because it's bad. But why? Why is it so important to try to avoid probate?
Well, so we make more money on our probates than we do on the estate plan. So number one, it's expensive. Mm-hmm. So we want to help them avoid that expense of their heirs having to cough up the money for us, for the court fees, etc. Which sometimes, because they aren't able to get access to any of the deceased person's money, they're having to come out of pocket for. So number one is the expense. Here, probate is fairly straightforward as opposed to California. So anybody happens to be listening from California, get a trust.
That's the truth.
Yeah, it is absolutely the truth. Here we have an accelerated procedure called informal probate, but it's still a court procedure. So we still have a stack of documents that we have to put together. We have to have somebody sign. If there is more than one person who could serve as the executor, they all have to sign either an agreement or all serve at once, which is a really bad idea. And so it's cumbersome. So, not just do I have to put together all of these documents to present to the court, I also have to get, let's say it's a deceased person is dad, and I'm the sister who is, trying to get my brothers to sign off to let me just take care of things. There's a lot to it in terms of making sure that they sign that I can serve as executor, and they sign that I don't have to post a bond, which again comes out of my pocket in the interim. And then once we get that submitted, it's usually fairly quick to get the appointment by the court. But until that happens, no access to bank accounts, no ability to get the house on the market. It really does just put everything to a screeching halt until we get that certified letters personal representative that appoints them as the executor and have the ability to go then and deal with things. So that's the big thing is trying to avoid that cumbersome procedure to begin with, and then the reporting to the court along the way, the delays, the expense, the need for the executor to come out of pocket initially. All of those things are things that most of our clients absolutely want to avoid. And sometimes they don't understand what it all is, but they're right. Probate is, even though it's not terrible here, it's expensive, it's cumbersome, and if we can avoid it, it's really a good idea.
Yeah. And one more thing I might add on top of that, just based on what I've seen in my experience handling some of these probates, is one of the things people really don't like about it is its public nature as well. It just, by virtue of it being a court proceeding, for anybody that has any interest in these court proceedings, which may not be everyone, the random person coming by a court docket is not really going to learn much on the court website. But there are some people out there that stand to benefit from contacting personal representatives from time to time as well. A common story that I hear, and I'm going to just say this disclaimer at the beginning of this, because every time I tell this story, everyone thinks I have a vendetta out against real estate investors. Real estate investors are great people. They're trying to make it in this world. They are fine. It's completely valid way of handling assets, money, all of that type of thing. However, there are a few that I have heard that will reach out to personal representatives, to these grieving family members in a true time of uncertainty and wanting to try and get through this process as soon as they can and, sell the house, take care of the family, that type of thing. And the incentive structure for a real estate investor is to try to get the best deal that they can. And oftentimes a deal can be made fairly quickly to take a piece of property off somebody's hands. And it's just one example of how a public court proceeding could be a net negative in in taking care of someone's estate. Not only could they be contacted by someone trying to give them a lowball offer, they may get a bunch of calls from many real estate investors in a way that's kind of overwhelming. And the thing about serving as what's called a personal representative, or the person in charge of taking all of the assets together, is they have a legal duty to get as much as they can for the people that are going to be receiving all that property. It's called a fiduciary duty. If they run afoul of that, if they don't get everything that they possibly could have, they run the risk of being personally liable out of pocket for that difference. So these are all the things that we counsel all of our probate clients through, and frankly, all of our estate planning clients through, as to why they want to put something in place that's going to avoid that probate altogether.
The other thing we've run into also are creditor claims, some of which are not legitimate at all. Mm-hmm. And so we still have to deal with them. So we had a situation where someone had I'll call him a handyman, who claimed to have done all kinds of work on the house. Well, he didn't have a contract. We didn't have any indication that he'd done more than a few little things along the way. But we didn't know. Had he been paid? Did he actually do this work? We have to investigate these. We can deny that claim, but he can also contest our denial. So it really does open up the estate to potential fraudulent claims or people who are trying to take advantage. Again, as you said, it's a vulnerable situation. And so you do have people that come out of the woodwork sometimes and try to take advantage of people who are in the vulnerable situation. They don't really know what's going on. They don't know what their mom or dad or whoever did and what they agreed to. And now we're faced with these claims or these offers that, that if they fall victim to them, maybe make them breach their duties to the other beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for coming to our blog for the Law Office of Libby Banks. I'm Libby Banks.
I'm Travis Meyers.
And you can contact us anytime via our website at www.libbybanks.com. You can also call the office for one of our free initial consultations at 602-375-6752. And if you're looking for probate or trust administration help, we can assist with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and join us for our next episode.
Thank you for listening to the official podcast of the Law Office of Libby Banks. If you're in need of an estate plan, please reach out to our team by either calling 602-375-6752 or emailing info@libbybanks.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Just search the Law Office of Libby Banks. Free consultations apply to new and existing estate plans only. If an estate plan is not completed or was prepared by a third party, revisions will be given at an hourly rate. This has been a T-Door production. Music by Track Tribe.